Look closely at the red carpets of recent years, and you may notice a conversation that keeps coming back: the changing beauty standards of Hollywood. In recent years, media outlets, fans, and online communities have increasingly commented on the physical transformations of prominent actresses and entertainers, including Ariana Grande, Margot Robbie, and Jenna Ortega. Discussions about their appearances have sparked a much larger debate about body image, beauty standards, and the enormous pressure placed on women in the entertainment industry. But there is an important detail that often gets lost in these conversations. The pressure to look a certain way is not new. Hollywood has been shaping and policing female beauty for generations. The ideal body may change from one decade to another, but the pressure remains remarkably consistent. At different points in history, actresses have been expected to become curvier, thinner, taller, more youthful, or almost impossibly delicate in order to fit whatever image the industry considered desirable. And this is where the story becomes much darker. The modern obsession with extreme thinness did not suddenly appear in the age of social media. It has roots that stretch back nearly a century to the era of the Hollywood studio system, when major movie studios had extraordinary control over the careers and sometimes the personal lives of their contracted performers. One of the most famous examples is Judy Garland. When Garland was still a teenager, she was signed by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, better known as MGM. At the time, the studio system was incredibly powerful. Actors were not simply hired for individual films. Many were bound to long-term contracts, and studios could have enormous influence over everything from the roles they played to their public image and appearance. Garland's experience became particularly complicated when MGM cast her as Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz, which was released in 1939. Garland was only 16 when filming began. Dorothy, however, was portrayed as a young, innocent girl from Kansas. That created a visual challenge for the studio. Garland was naturally growing into a young woman, while the character needed to maintain a youthful appearance. Rather than simply allowing Garland to mature naturally, MGM worked to maintain a carefully controlled image of her. According to biographies and accounts of Garland's life, studio executives and staff placed enormous pressure on her weight and appearance. She was subjected to strict dieting, intense work schedules, and the use of substances that were common within parts of the entertainment industry at the time. Some accounts describe her being placed on highly restrictive diets, with foods such as chicken soup and coffee being used to help control her appetite. She was also encouraged to smoke cigarettes, which were widely believed at the time to suppress hunger. The most disturbing part, however, was not simply the diet. Garland's schedule during her years at MGM could be exhausting. Young performers were expected to work extremely long hours, sometimes filming late into the night and then returning to the studio again the next day. To keep performers awake and functioning through these punishing schedules, studio doctors sometimes prescribed amphetamines, commonly referred to as pep pills. These drugs could increase alertness while also suppressing appetite. But staying awake for extremely long periods created another problem. Eventually, performers had to sleep. Barbiturates were sometimes prescribed to help them rest. This created a dangerous cycle: stimulants to keep performers working, followed by sedatives to make them sleep. It is important to understand the historical context here. These practices were not necessarily viewed with the same level of alarm that they would be today. Amphetamines and barbiturates were legally prescribed medications, and their risks were not always fully understood or properly controlled. For Garland, however, the consequences were devastating. Her experience at MGM has become one of the clearest examples of how Hollywood's studio system could turn a young performer into a carefully managed product. Garland was extraordinarily talented, but the industry did not simply ask her to perform. It also demanded that she fit a particular image, and that image had to be maintained. Her body, her appearance, her energy, her working hours, and even her ability to stay awake were all treated as things that could be controlled in the pursuit of entertainment. This is what makes the history of Hollywood's beauty standards so important. The problem was never simply that one actress was told to lose weight. It was the larger system behind it. Hollywood repeatedly created an idealized version of femininity and then expected real women to reshape themselves to fit it. and the ideal kept changing. The glamorous curves celebrated in one decade could become unfashionable in another. The athletic body of one generation could be replaced by an ultra-thin silhouette in the next. Later, social media would add another layer of pressure, creating an environment where celebrities were constantly photographed, analyzed, compared, and judged. Today, the mechanisms may look different from the 1930s. Studios no longer have exactly the same level of control over performers that they had during Hollywood's golden age. Social media has also given celebrities more direct control over how they present themselves. But the pressure has not disappeared. Instead, it has evolved. When people look at Ariana Grande, Margot Robbie, Jenna Ortega, or other stars and discuss whether they appear thinner than before, it is tempting to treat their bodies as evidence of a larger cultural trend. But we should be careful. We cannot know what is happening inside someone's body simply by looking at photographs. Weight can change for countless reasons, and appearance alone cannot tell us someone's health, habits, or private circumstances. What we can examine is the culture surrounding them. Why are women's bodies constantly treated as public property? Why does Hollywood repeatedly create a narrow definition of what a leading actress is supposed to look like? Judy Garland's story reminds us that this is not a new phenomenon. Nearly a century ago, a teenage girl entered Hollywood and discovered that becoming a star could also mean surrendering control over her own image. Today, celebrities may have more freedom than Garland did, but the pressure to look young, beautiful, and impossibly thin has not completely disappeared.